Margaret Maggie Thompson sat motionless, her body sinking into the worn velvet armchair she'd bought when her son, Samuel, was 8, paid for with her first decent paycheck from cleaning homes in Beverly Hills. At 69, her hands trembled, not from age, but from a deep, visceral wound as she stared at her smartphone screen. The notification was stark. Available balance, $0. She read it again, then a third time, her heart refusing to accept what her mind already knew. She called the bank. An automated voice answered first, followed by a human representative who asked routine questions. They explained that the transactions were online wire transfers totaling over $85,000, her entire life's savings, her security, her only safety net. "Where did the money go?" Maggie asked, her voice cracking as if she dreaded the answer but needed to hear it. "The funds were transferred to an account under Samuel Jacob Thompson," the agent replied, detached. "Would you like to file a fraud report, ma'am?" Maggie didn't respond. She hung up, the silence in her modest South Central Los Angeles home deafening. The only sounds were the steady tick of the kitchen clock and the faint buzz of a dying fluorescent bulb. Outside, a street vendor's cart rolled by, oblivious to the chasm that had opened within her. The old rotary phone rang, a relic she kept out of habit. "Hello?" she said, her tone flat. "Maggie, dear, have you seen Samuel's social media?" It was Gladys, her longtime neighbor, brimming with excitement. "He's in Rome, honey, dining on fancy food with his wife and her mother-in-law. My, they look like movie stars." Maggie swallowed hard, her spirit momentarily unmoored. She shuffled to her bedroom, retrieved her outdated tablet from the nightstand, and opened Samuel's profile. She wasn't tech-savvy, but she followed him from afar, like peering through a window at a life no longer hers. There he was, Samuel, her only son, the boy she'd birthed in pain and raised alone after his father left for another woman. The son she'd given everything to, including the ancestral land her grandparents left her so he could attend college. He smiled, a wineglass in hand, dressed in a crisp linen shirt, embracing Vanessa, his wife, and Lorraine, the mother-in-law who always looked down on Maggie. The caption read, "Rome, my new chapter. I deserve this." In the comments, Vanessa wrote, "Good things come to those who wait. Thanks, mama-in-law," followed by a money emoji. Maggie didn't cry or scream. She stood, clutching the tablet like a scalding stone. Then, unnoticed by anyone, she smiled. A smile that carried the weight of a truth she'd long avoided. In Rome, under a gray sky and cobblestone streets, Samuel raised his glass without remorse. "See," Vanessa said, sipping costly wine. "She's old. She won't need it." Lorraine laughed sharply. "That clueless woman. She wouldn't know a plane from a bus. That cash was wasted on her." Samuel said nothing, his eyes fixed on the Colosseum, a churn of unease in his gut he ignored, just as he'd learned to silence hunger as a boy, when Maggie would say, "Hold on, baby, we'll eat tomorrow." That night, Maggie's house felt older. Everything was in place, but nothing felt right. On the shelf were photos of Samuel, in preschool, in his first school uniform, at his college graduation. She'd sold her engagement ring at 18 to fund his high school, the family land at 23 for his college, and at 30 she'd helped pay for his wedding, despite Vanessa's coldness. Maggie had cooked for him, washed his clothes, and sacrificed her own needs, yet he drifted further away. "Mom, you don't get this world," he'd say, dismissively. "Things aren't like before. Vanessa and I have plans, and I'm part of them. You'll always be in my heart, but you can't hold me back forever." A week before the betrayal came to light, Maggie had tried visiting Samuel at his Studio City apartment, carrying a tray of her signature fried chicken and greens. She rang the bell, no answer. She waited under the sun for 2 hours until the doorman approached. "Looking for Mr. Samuel Thompson?" "Yes, I'm his mother. I'm sorry, ma'am, I was told not to let you in unannounced." She swallowed. Why's that? I don't know, ma'am, just following orders. She walked home, bypassing the bus, needing the hot, gritty air to clear her mind. She thought of every meal she'd skipped, every overtime shift, every penny saved for Samuel. That evening, Gladys brought pecan pie and coffee. You're strong, Maggie. Don't let this break you. Samuel's young. He'll come around. Maggie sighed, her gaze distant. Do kids ever regret it, Gladys? Sure, when their mom's gone, they see it all. I hope it's not too late when he does. Gladys frowned. What'll you do? Maggie's eyes held a new fire. I'll smile, like I've always done. But when a woman's got nothing left to lose, she's dangerous. In Rome, Samuel stepped from the shower, overhearing Vanessa on the balcony. Yes, we did it. The old lady's clueless, the money's ours. Tomorrow we open the Spain account and ditch Samuel. He froze, water chilling on his skin. He said nothing, returned to bed, and lay beside Vanessa, who feigned sleep. Something had shifted, but he didn't yet know the worst was coming. Back in Los Angeles, Maggie brewed chamomile tea. The night was heavy, streetlights flickering, dogs snarling over trash. She opened her notebook, used for recipes she never made, and wrote in shaky script, "This isn't the end. It's the start of my silence, and my silence will cut deeper than any scream." She closed it, lay down, and slept tearlessly for the first time in years. Meanwhile, Samuel checked his phone in Rome, seeing account blocked due to suspicious activity. What? He muttered. The first crack had formed, and Maggie's silent justice had begun. Maggie rose at dawn, her bones creaking, but her spirit alight with a new resolve. Not anger, but purpose. While heating water, she stared at the stove's blue flame, memories flooding back. At 14, she started cleaning houses in Brentwood, hands cracked from harsh soap. By 17, pregnant with Samuel, his father vanished after learning it was a boy. He raised Samuel alone, carrying him while scrubbing others' floors, teaching him to play with bottle caps when toys were scarce. They had no TV, but shared songs and stories. When Samuel was 6, a client offered to pay his private school tuition if Maggie worked full-time and lived in. She never hesitated, leaving her home to live in a rooftop apartment, visiting Samuel weekends with small gifts and a listening ear. At 16, Samuel promised, "Mom, when I make it, I'll buy you a house where the cold doesn't creep in." She replied, "Don't buy me anything, son. Just don't forget me." Then came college. Maggie sold her grandparents' Georgia land for his tuition, proud to tell neighbors, "My boy will be an accountant. He'll escape this life." But he escaped in ways she hadn't foreseen. Vanessa entered his life in his 3rd semester. Her polished charm and sharp gaze unsettled Maggie, not from jealousy, but from instinct. Vanessa's mother, Lorraine, wore imitation designer clothes and spoke with affected sophistication. Their first visit to Maggie's home brought veiled insults. "Such charming walls, so rustic," Lorraine sneered. Vanessa whispered, "How did Samuel grow up here? It's like a shack." Maggie smiled, but something cracked inside. Vanessa slowly isolated Samuel. She limited Maggie's visits, discouraged her input, and excluded her from events, claiming she didn't fit. Samuel, enamored, complied. One night, he visited Maggie, eating her pot roast. "Mom, Vanessa says you're too involved. We need space to grow." Her food grew cold. "I just want your happiness, son." He said, "I'm a man now. Men don't need their mothers forever." She cleared the table, gave him the leftovers, and watched him leave. Vanessa took over Samuel's finances, changed accounts, and urged secrecy from Maggie, calling her limited. Samuel agreed, blinded by ambition and manipulation. Maggie noticed oddities, missing statements, unfamiliar insurance policies. She confided in Walter, a retired lawyer and childhood friend. "How do I know if someone is using my name?" Walter reviewed her documents, uncovering a forged signature on a joint account. "They've been siphoning money for months," he said. Maggie didn't sleep that night. Not from the theft, but from the betrayal. Her son wasn't just manipulated, He was complicit. Maggie's discovery of the betrayal didn't break her, it sharpened her. She walked with a straighter back, her spirit hardened. She began making calls, visiting offices, and piecing together a plan. In Rome, Samuel sensed a shift. Vanessa's affection waned, Lorraine barely hid her contempt. One night he overheard them plotting to abandon him after securing the money in Span. His world tilted, but he stayed silent, the weight of his choices pressing down. Maggie, meanwhile, consulted Brenda, a retired accountant neighbor. Over late-night sessions, Brenda taught her to navigate bank portals, spotting transactions tied to Samuel's visits or document requests. "It's not paperwork," Brenda said, pointing to a forged signature. "It's theft." Maggie recorded every detail in her notebook: dates, amounts, betrayals. "What now?" Brenda asked. "Nothing yet," Maggie replied, her voice steady. In Rome, Samuel's unease grew. His card was declined at a restaurant, then again at a shop. Notifications piled up. Account frozen. Vanessa screamed at him in public. "You idiot, what did you do?" Lorraine sneered. "I told you he's useless." They left him in a cheap hotel, alone with a half-packed suitcase and the sting of betrayal. Back in Los Angeles, Maggie moved with precision. With Walter's help, she filed a preemptive complaint for elder financial abuse, freezing Samuel's accounts. They uncovered an attempt to register her house as a shared investment property with forged documents. A failed, but audacious move. Maggie visited a church, not to pray, but to sit and whisper, "Give me patience, God," not to forgive, but to resist destroying him myself. At home, she played blues and began knitting her revenge, not with violence, but with calculated silence. One morning, while sweeping, Maggie found a crumpled envelope under her armchair. Inside was a forged will, bequeathing her house and savings to Samuel upon her death. Her chest tightened, but she didn't cry. She called Walter. "This is dangerous," he said. "If filed, you could have lost everything." Maggie's voice was low. "He tried to kill me on paper." Walter nodded grimly. "What now?" "Now," she said, smiling coldly, "I bury him awake." Days later, Dr. Evans from the health clinic called. Maggie visited, her scarf tight, notebook in hand. The doctor's eyes were heavy. "You have leukemia, advanced stage. 6 months, maybe." Maggie stared at a wall stain shaped like a bird. "I understand what it costs to die with dignity." She refused chemotherapy. "I won't let death catch me in a gown." She walked home, passing familiar streets, her son's preschool, the market where she cleaned for $40 a day. She felt the city, her roots, her purpose. At home, Maggie opened a wooden box under her bed containing her notebook, receipts, and a photo of young Samuel clinging to her leg. She murmured, "No more prayers. The work begins." With Walter, she filed complaints, froze accounts, and activated an international alert for Samuel's return. In her new red notebook, she wrote, "To Samuel, I birthed you in pain, gave you my life and love, and you stole my dignity without blinking. This isn't revenge, it's justice. All I have to die in peace." She drew a small heart, her last gesture of tenderness. Samuel wandered Rome's streets, staying in cheap hostels, eating sporadically. Tanya and Lorraine vanished. He thought of Maggie's voice, her rice pudding, her touch when he was sick. He wanted to call again, but couldn't. Back in Los Angeles, Maggie's health declined, but her spirit soared. She shaved her head before chemo could, looked in the mirror and said, "Now I look like me." At her next doctor's visit, the cancer's advance was confirmed. "I'm not afraid to die," she told Walter. "I just needed to leave with peace. Now I will." Maggie sold her blender, a mirror, and a childhood ring to fund a trip to Rome. She wasn't chasing Samuel, she was closing a cycle. Walter, arriving earlier, arranged for her to attend Samuel's embassy hearing, pulling strings with a consular friend who understood a mother's justice. Maggie carried a yellow envelope with photos, letters, and her truth, ready to face her son, not as a mother, but as a witness. At Rome's airport, Maggie arrived, her body frail, but her resolve unshaken. Walter waited, hat in hand. "You don't look like a woman facing her son," he said. "And you don't look like a retired lawyer," she replied, clutching her envelope. They drove to the embassy in silence, Maggie focused on her final task. In a hotel across the city, Samuel stared at his reflection. Sunken eyes, unkempt beard, a man unraveling. He was to sign a declaration severing ties to the joint accounts, admitting to forged documents. In exchange, he'd avoid arrest, but face a U.S. financial review. Tanya appeared in the lobby, wearing sunglasses and a borrowed red coat, her presence cold. "You're late," she snapped. "I didn't know you'd come," he said. "I'm here to watch you fail," she retorted. Samuel's fists clenched, but her words no longer stung, just the realization of his own blindness. At the embassy, they waited in a sterile room. Tanya chewed gum, indifferent. Samuel sweated, dreading the inevitable. The door opened and Maggie entered, wearing a gray sweater, long skirt, and a black bandana over her sparse hair. She walked slowly, holding the yellow envelope. Samuel stood, voice breaking. "What are you doing here?" "I came to witness you sign," Maggie said, "not as your mother, but as your judge." Tanya laughed cruelly. "How sweet, the old lady's final act." Maggie met her gaze with pity. "You took everything I had, but I taught him what you'll never have, forgiveness." Tanya scoffed. "Your son's a failure, a parasite." "No," Maggie said. "I raised a good boy. You twisted him, and he let you." Samuel closed his eyes. "Mom, I don't know when I lost myself." Maggie handed him the envelope. "Here are your photos, when you learned to walk, to write, your Santa letter asking for a bicycle if you got an A in math. You did, and I kept my promise. And here's my letter, not to save you, but to warn you." The official explained the process. Samuel signed, each stroke heavy with shame. A tourist camera captured Maggie's final words. "You were my life, but I was never yours. Today I see it. You weren't born to love me, only to reflect my strength." The video went viral, comments praising Maggie's dignity. Tanya stormed out, leaving Samuel alone. On a quiet Rome street, Maggie stopped. "This is where we part." "Mom," Samuel choked, "can you forgive me?" "I have," she said, "but you haven't forgiven yourself. Live with what you did and make it mean something." She walked away, never looking back. That night, Samuel read her letter in his hotel room, photos spilling out. Her words in blue ink, smelling of lavender, broke him. He knelt, sobbing, not from punishment but from the shame of losing her dignity. He returned to the U.S., a ghost passing through customs, carrying only the envelope and his guilt. Los Angeles felt gray, its streets echoing his childhood with Maggie. He had no home, no allies, only the weight of his actions. Maggie settled back into her cracked-walled home, her rocking chair creaking. Neighbors cared for her as her health faded. Walter with medicine, Brenda with soups. She became a legend. The mother who faced betrayal with grace. Children brought her park flowers. She gave them lollipops, listening to their tales. Her body weakened, clothes hanging loose, but she never stopped moving, never let herself fall. Samuel visited her porch, leaving donuts, flowers, notes, never knocking, knowing he had no right. Maggie felt his presence, but didn't open the door. One night, she wrote in her red notebook, "My son, love is given, not demanded. If you've learned this, you're not lost. Don't seek me when I'm gone. I'll be in every mistake you avoid, every kindness you offer. Forgive yourself by not failing another woman's eyes. That's my redemption." She signed it, sealed it in an envelope labeled, "For Samuel." On a bright morning, Maggie died, sunlight streaming through her windows. Neighbors found her with the notebook, envelope, and a knitted blanket, surrounded by children's flowers. Her face held serene peace. Walter closed her eyes, knowing she wanted no tears. The wake was simple: park flowers, children's drawings, her favorite blues. Samuel wasn't told, but he knew, feeling her loss in his chest. He entered her home, knelt by her body, and read her letter aloud, weeping silently. In her wooden box, he found a photo of himself as a child, a note on the back. "I still believe in you, son." Samuel sat in her rocking chair, clutching the photo and looking at the sky. He stayed in her house, living simply with her chair, notebook, and photo. Those who leave make space. Those who stay fill it with memory or redemption. Did you enjoy the story? What city are you reading from? Share in the comments. If you loved it, support me with a super thanks to keep these stories coming. Subscribe to my channel for more tales like this. Thank you for your support. I can't wait to hear your thoughts.